Wall Street Journal basically came out with an article writing off the stained glass industry, saying that churches aren't buying stained glass anymore. A lot of firms are going out of business, that tradition is somewhat dying. And the problem is you're dealing with a product that no one really needs.
We're part of an industry that is 1,000 years old. It needs to be revitalized for sure. But you know, there's that whole thing where you can bitch and complain about something or you could do something about it. I like to bitch and complain about stuff. And then I like to go sit on the couch and watch golf. Last year we were having a Christmas party in the office. The phone rang and I picked it up. And on the other end of the line was an architect. And he goes, I just want some information about how large you can make a stained glass panel. I was like, well, how large do you want to make it? He's like, well, the window itself is 100 feet long by 40 feet high. I'm like, that's 400 square feet at our normal price. That's a lot of money. And then I go in and I tell David, and David goes, that's 4,000 square feet. I mean, it was beyond the scope of what my math could even do.
It's one of the largest windows in the history of stained glass. We just didn't understand who could possibly want a window this big.
Hi, I'm Chuck Braverman. This is another episode of Westdoc Online. We're getting up there in the numbers now, and we're over these years now shown you all kinds of different documentaries. And it's funny how many docs are heavy and have to do with heavy subjects. And, you know, I'm pleased to say that today's film is charming, entertaining. It has a ticking clock. It's structured. It's a terrific film all on its own. And it's a documentary. And we'll get to that in just a second, but I want to remind you we're brought to you in part by Real Screen. Real Screen Summit's coming up in New Orleans, January 29th to February 1st. It's a terrific event. It's for filmmakers. It's for buyers. It's for sellers. If you're in the nonfiction, documentary, or reality business, you ought to be there. Go to our page at westdoconline.com and go down to the bottom and click on the link. It'll give you all the information. There's also a link there for riverside.fm, which is the platform we use to try and get the best quality. And if you use that link, you can get 15% off. So today we are featuring a terrific film called Holy Frit. And I suspect before this show is over, you'll find out what Frit is. Let's say hello to the writer, director, Justin Moore, and the featured person, player, I don't want to say star because that makes you sound like an actor, and this is a documentary, Tim Carey. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hey. Hi, Chuck. How you doing?
Hey, Chuck, I have to speak for Justin just because you know you're recording this. But his last name is Monroe, so you may want to redo that.
Oh, what did I say? What did I say?
More. I get more a lot. That happens a lot to me, actually. So it's and I get Jason a lot. So
so you get to edit yourself, Chuck, not us.
Well, believe me, it won't be the first time I've been editing myself. So thank you for pointing that out. I will redo the opening when we're done here.
Cool.
So let's just start at the very, very beginning. I get a press kit on these films now from publicists, and they tell me a little bit of the backstory. And I think the backstory about how you guys knew each other and how this film started is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, you want me to go this time? So I lived in LA way back in the day, and then moved away to do a film in Oklahoma and in Portland, and knew I always wanted to live in South Pasadena, Los Angeles. And so when we moved back, I just happened to move into a little town called South Pasadena, and I ended up moving right next door to that dude right there, Tim Carey, and we didn't know each other at all. And so, you know, as neighbors do, you sit around the fire and drink beer and kind of chat and whatnot and find out what each other does. I found out what he was up to in life. He was this stained glass creator, and he knew that I was a filmmaker. And he said, well, funny that you're a filmmaker because we're pitching for the biggest stained glass window project ever. And we need to stand out among the 60 companies we are bidding against around the world. And so could you come down and do a little promo for us to make us look cool? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? You know? And so I did. And when I went down there, I met his boss, David, and I met just kind of the crew. And I immediately felt like I was stepping back in time at Judson Studios and went, what is this place? And then as they talked about what they were bidding for, I said, guys, are you filming this? Please tell me that you're filming this because you don't even have the job yet. And they're like, well, no. And I said, well, would you let me start? And they said, really? No one's going to care. And I said, I don't know. I think they will. And so that was it. I just sort of kind of stumbled into it. I mean, literally came to my doorstep, so to speak. So that's how it began.
Tim, how did you feel about having the camera on you all the time and some of your comedic moments and heavy moments and everything else?
Well, I've been accused of acting in this documentary a few times, and so there's probably some truth to that. I don't know who doesn't act when the camera's on their face, all the time, but I think in the beginning it was a little bit, we didn't really know what we were doing. I didn't really know how to be in front of the camera. I felt like Justin was there to film our process, and I know that Narcissus felt the same way. And so we just cameras would turn on, we would work, and we would think that's what he's doing. He's filming us working. And then it got a little strange when the filmings went beyond the work, and it went into the break room, and it went outside with us, and it went into the car, and it went into the airplane, and he started following us everywhere. And I think the goal was to get us to kind of forget about him so that some of the moments that ended up being key moments in the film were captured. And that's what happened. After a while, we sort of forgot about him because he was there all the time. And so I think as the process went along, we learned how to just focus on our work and let him do his thing and try not to get in each other's way. So
let's take a look at the trailer.
I can't answer what is an artist. It's too big a question.
I just never thought any of my work was ever important.
The middle child never feels that anything is fair. He's the black sheep.
I don't think anyone ever grows up wanting to be a stained glass artist. It just kind of finds you.
Why are you doing this?
Because I didn't get into medical school.
Everything I did that had a foundation in common sense, I always failed in.
Judson has the largest stained glass window in the world to make.
But everything I did when I dreamed something intensely, I always got it.
We just didn't understand who could possibly want a window this big.
The church has 20,000 members. This expansion will allow for them to take many more.
And others who have questioned if $90 million is excessive.
That sounds like a crazy amount of money. It sounds absurd, actually.
Are you guys going to make the church's deadline?
No,
We're making something that's never been done before.
we don't know how we're going to do this.
It could sink us. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Narcissus!
He is to stained glass what somebody like Steven Spielberg is to filmmaking, or Michael Jordan is to shoes. There's our guy flying in to save us.
Okay, here it comes.
The whole place feels to me that it's in the Stone Age. This piece has to be a masterpiece. It can't be finished. The people in that community for 500 years are going to look at something you did that sucks.
Time's his flight back, anybody know?
Are you planning on cutting all this?
I don't know, we're failing pretty miserably. Oh shit, what happened to our kiln?
Did I poison the neighborhood?
We've been getting death threats.
So there's a pattern developing here. I think I'm the problem.
I know exactly what he's going through.
Tim, we're a little worried about the cracks in it. Is that something you guys can fix?
So can we have one more year to finish the window?
No, you can't.
It's almost like Mickey Mouse that goes off the cliff and he falls only when he looks down.
I kind of felt like I might die.
It's kind of like that.
All my life I've been involved with glass, and I've never seen that.
Sometimes you got to grab a meal on the run. We're doing the biggest window in the world. Oh, I got to change my life.
It's funny you were just saying about the camera was there, and I did a show the other day with legendary Joan Churchill, who talked about when she originally started shooting documentaries, 50 years ago, 40 years ago. The camera was on your shoulder, and there was a big viewfinder in front of your face, and the subject was looking at a piece of glass, not a person. And she says now with little cameras that are handheld, and now she's using this.
Oh yeah.
This camera.
Right.
But, you know, she's using this one, which I thought was heretical. But she says I can now look at somebody and see their face, and they can see my face, and it changes everything. So I'm wondering, Justin and Tim, was the cameraman, did he have like a big Venice on his shoulder that was covering up his face, or did he have a little something that he was hand holding, or some combination?
Good question. So as you held yours up, I'll hold mine up. This film was shot on all kinds of different cameras, you know, Red camera and Sony's and Canons. But honestly, throughout the movie, many times, most of the magic moments were shot with this by me up in Tim's face when I was in the car with him. I mean,
and you can't see it doesn't pop out and say iPhone on it anywhere, right?
It's incredible what the technology looks like with these cameras. I mean, truly, it's amazing to me. I you know, the first time I saw it blown up on, you know, a big screen, I couldn't believe it myself. I thought, how is that holding up? But it did. And since then, you know, I've used it so much because what she said, the lady referenced, there's an intimacy that you can maintain that way, right? They don't even think about it, and it's such a normal part of our day that you don't even consider the phone. And so, man, it to me was like the magic. It allowed me to get the most intimate moments. So
the other thing, Chuck, was that we were kind of on advance notice from Justin to have our phones on us all the time, because he, you know, the moments he couldn't be there, he would tell us, if something's going on and I'm not there, pull out your phone, put it on a little tripod or put it on the ledge and film it. And there's a bunch of those moments in there too, where I was in an important meeting, or there's one really specific moment. We're out to dinner in Kansas City, and David was telling Adam that the price of the window just went up by $400,000. And I just reached back and put my phone right behind me, and it's grainy and dark, but you get that feeling of that moment. And then what's even more amazing is that as soon as I think Adam says, well, we can't pay that amount of money, the phone falls down. And that's part of the film. And it's like, man, there's a visceral situation happening there. But I would say even more so with the iPhone is also in the interviews, because Justin is really good at doing interviews, and he doesn't let you off the hook. He looks you in the eye, and he kind of forces you into getting what he wants out of you, like any good interviewer would do. So not having all those big cameras, oftentimes he's just on his phone talking to me, and it feels like a more intimate conversation, which I think allows for things to happen.
I don't think it's a spoiler to say that it is revealed early on in this film that you didn't know how the heck to build this world's largest stained glass piece of art for this mega church in Kansas. And I'm wondering, when they saw the film, or when they discovered what a situation you were in, how did they feel? Even though you were by that time, I would assume we're showing them pieces and they were happy with the art and so on. But was that an awkward moment?
A little bit, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there is an actual quote in the film of their general manager saying, well, we found this out, and like, you really did this without knowing how to do it? And he's like, that's not really fair. And he said that, and I was like, well, what's fair? Fair? You know, I mean, we all do. I mean, Adam Hamilton started his church in a funeral home. Did he know where that was headed? Sometimes you just start doing something, and you trust people, and you're building a relationship with a human being. That's what I was doing, and I was asking them to trust me. And there were a lot of moments during the process where I thought maybe they made a mistake by trusting me, but you just feel it sometimes in your bones that you're going to be able to do it, and you have to do that thing, which is like, my favorite quote these days is Ray Bradbury says, "Jump off the cliff and grow your wings on the way down." You know, that's how he was as an author and a writer, and I like that. It's an exciting way to live, and I've been successful, and I think having a track record of doing things that I didn't exactly know how I was going to do, but you get forced into it and you figure it out. And so, yeah, there was, I think, a little bit of cynicism towards the end, but by then we had such a great relationship and we figured it out that I'm like, yeah, see, told you, no problem, you know?
So Justin, and this film took The notes say 7 years from the time you started. How was this film financed? How did you hire a cameraman? How did you hire an editor? How did you pay for airplane tickets to Kansas and so on and so forth?
I'm sure I wouldn't be the first documentarian you've talked to who said it's cobbled together little by little by little along the way. Some of it goes on a credit card. Some of it you actually end up getting some help from friends and family. You do what you've got to do to make it work. And so it was, the filming part was just getting a little from here, a little from there, a little from myself, and just showing up. And that's the one thing I liked about the documentary. I usually do narratives, right? I usually do scripted projects. This was my first feature documentary. I'd done a short one before. But that's what I loved about this, is that I could literally just grab my cameras and just go do it. It was on the back end, the fun, the editing part that was going to be the biggest nut to crack. But I got a little from here and a little from there all the way through, and just, and I also have a wife who's just, her and I've been together for so long. She knows me, she knows I'm nuts, but she's very supportive of my crazy. And I'm so grateful, because without that, I don't know what I would do. She's willing to go up and down with me. And that was it. We just cobbled it together for the shooting process. And then we did some actual fundraising for the post-production. I buckled down and did like kind of a crowdfunding situation for that. Yeah.
Really? That's through...
Maybe you want to say this, but maybe mention that Judson, seeing that there was an interest on their side to get this thing out there, they provided some seed money as an investment.
Yeah, they provided the verse, so I was able to get like an audio recorder for some investment. A few things that I didn't have. Judson stepped up because they were like, "Wow, this is going to be a good thing," and they didn't have any control whatsoever. So I had all the rights, but David saw that I was going all the way with it, and so he helped me little by little. So that was very helpful. And then, there were some people that came on and worked for, points. Cinematographer worked for some points, and just people that invested with their work. People at Judson helped me out. People in the marketing department helped me out whenever I needed some help. But I don't know. There was something about this project, Chuck, and I know this is, I'm not new. But when the thing captures your heart, you just find a way, and you have to convince people, that this is worthwhile effort too, and it captures them, and then they're like, I want to do this. I see it, and let's do it. So I'm grateful for all the support.
On paper, it doesn't sound very exciting.
Okay, right. You are right, and I knew that. I knew, what am I doing? I'm doing a movie about stained glass. No one is going to watch this. No one. I knew nothing about stained glass, but to me, it wasn't about the window. To me, it was about a person taking on something much bigger than himself and having to rise to the occasion. And the relationship between him and Narcissus was universal. Anybody can understand what it feels to take on something bigger than themselves and the intensity it takes. And so I knew the art would take care of itself, but to me, it wasn't about stained glass. It was about him.
So Narcissus is this Italian renowned stained glass artist who resides in Mexico City and comes in to help you out. And how much friction and or tension was there, would you say, during the process of putting this all together? And I don't mean the film, I mean the stained glass, because there were times when it looked like you didn't have much of a shot here.
Yeah. Well, I would say that there was a lot less than I expected in terms of tension and difficulties. I had heard the warnings about Narcissus. They called him the Storm at Bullseye. He had this reputation, not to mention his work speaks for itself. And so I went in kind of like a little bit defensive when I first met him, but I was just blown away at his humanity and his eagerness to, I don't know whether he was just at a point in his life where he felt like it was time to sort of give back what he knew, and that he felt a real sense of purpose. So when he stepped into the project, he wanted the best for me. He wanted the best for the window. There was tension there at some point where it was like he felt the responsibility, by now being involved that it had to be a masterpiece, and he wasn't sure if I could do it. And so he would sort of take the reins, and I would have to reach in and try to pull them back. And as I did that, he allowed me, and he released some of that. And it was really beautiful. It was a relationship that I'm amazed that we got through it because of what I'd heard about him. But I think when you find somebody, your kindred spirits, he was an artist at heart. I'm an artist at heart. We both come to stained glass from the same background. There's not many of us. Most people who do stained glass, they were a carpenter first, or they sort of got into it because it's a family business. But he and I we were painters and artists, and we had this ideal of what art should be. Bringing that into stained glass, that was a kindred thing that we had. So there was a real respect that he had for me and I had for him. And so when we did have those moments of tension, we got through them because we both had the same goal in mind. But it wasn't all, beauty and wonderful the whole time. There were moments, but we got past them because, he has this humility that people don't really know about that really showed itself, I thought, in the film.
There's a short piece of some of your oil paintings, murals, which look really fascinating, and I'm wondering if you continue to do that at all, or are you only in stained glass?
What's crazy, Chuck, is sometimes in your life you have moments like, and for me, the moment of discovering glass was like it made me look at oil painting a very different way, and I haven't gone back because I just see it as a very cosmetic approach to paint. I mean, I love it. There's amazing painters out there. I have the utmost respect for people who do it and do it well. But for me, when you discover something that you feel like has this open frontier ahead of it, like glass, I don't have time to go back. I feel like I'm already on the clock in terms of like, I want to take this glass medium as a painting medium as far as it can go and teach about it and sort of like make it known that how amazing it is. So it's hard for me to go back to oil painting. It looks like mud. It doesn't have the beauty, the color, the transparency that glass has. So I have not gone back. My oil paints are in a box in my studio. I reserve the right to change my mind because every artist goes through this arc, it seems like, where you end up kind of where you started. So who knows? Never say never. But as of now, I'm all in on glass.
Do you want to briefly explain what Frit is and how you... Yeah. I don't want to get too deep in the woods here, but I do think it needs an explanation.
Yeah. So Frit is it's glass. It's just glass in a crushed up form. That's all it is. It's the same as any piece of glass that you would. It's just describes glass in a ground up form. When you grind up glass, it can be in very fine Frit, which is like a real powder, or it can be in very coarse Frit, which is like a chunky, pebbly sort of a thing. So that's really all it is. It's got this great, it's this word that everybody goes Frit, and it just sort of has this real staccato way about it when people say it. And that's why I think when Justin came up with the title, it was just sort of perfect. But it's a thing that I always thought did not have a ton of potential as a painting medium because it's so diffuse and even. It's like sand. So I just thought, how could this be painterly? But Narcissus was the one who figured out a way to use Frit to create paintings by transforming it through the heat of the kiln. So there's so much to do with it. There's so many ways to create paintings out of it. And so Frit is just really one form of glass that we used in making the window. There's Frit, there's sheet glass, and then everything in between.
Sliders, yeah. To me, I think we struggled to find the right name for a long time. But, as a stained glass artist, and you saw this in the film, stained glass doesn't want to go together. You can't blend it together. If you want to change colors, you have to put lead and then change the color. So this company, Bullseye, developed compatible glass that could be melted. And so for me, Frit was truly holy to this experience. It allowed them to do the thing that Tim didn't think was possible. This glass that could melt in painterly ways. And of course, holy Frit sounding a lot like something else, that someone might utter when they're frustrated. Of course, those words got uttered a lot in this project. And to me, it was holy and irreverent. It was the solve and the word. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. But it really was the answer. I mean, what Frit could do gave them what they needed.
Is this film submitted this year through the Academy? Oscar
It's amazing you just asked that. Yes, sir. Yes, it is submitted. And as of yesterday, the Academy reached out to me and said they were having a hard time. Something happened with the upload, and so we re-uploaded it just yesterday. But we are, the run that we're going on is Oscar qualified. Now, I mean, golly, there's so many great movies. I would, but just to be out there, to be in the running, I think is pretty amazing. So, yes, sir.
I think another amazing thing is that, the documentary world is one world and the theatrical scripted world is generally another world. And there are very few directors that cross over from one to the other. Yeah, of course, there are a few, but not very many. And so I wonder, did you feel in the beginning like, what the heck am I doing? How do I do this? Should I be doing this? Or this is a natural and I love it, or what?
I think the first part of your assumption is correct. But I just, anything in life that I've ever done, and my life has just been this wild, like I'm going over here or there, but it feels like the future sort of beckons you to the path you're supposed to take. And, I was always warned in the beginning, if you're going to take on any film project, make sure you're willing to be with it for 7 years at least. Even if it's just a narrative film and you're going to be done, you're going to stay with the business for at least 7 years. And for this one, it literally was, making it was the 7 years, beyond all the festivals and stuff we've done. So we're coming up on, we're right at 9 years on this thing. But it's like it captured me in a way that anything does, where I go, this is a moment. I have to do it. And just like Tim, I'll have to figure it out, and I understood enough from my past experiences of like story beats and things like that, and obviously recognizing good character development and stakes and all those things that you hope to write. But I don't think I could even written something that had this much synchronicity and intensity and stakes all wrapped in to one. I thought, man, I just stepped into just almost a dream situation, and I had to do it. So yeah, it was a figured out along the way, a lot like Tim.
Yeah. Tim, when did you first see the cut of the film, and how did you feel about it?
Oh, wow. We've done some interviews over the years. I've never been asked that question. I think it's more interesting what Narcissus thought, because he was the one who was like, Justin, you're crazy. Why are you doing this? And then he watched it and he goes, oh, I see. But I think I always knew that Justin was going to do a good job. I really did, because, with a lead character like myself, I don't know how anybody screwed it up. I felt that I had delivered. I had delivered the goods. And if he screws it up, it's on him. So, I would say that for sure there were a lot of squeamish moments looking at yourself, kind of going through these machinations. I mean, the embarrassing things that he exposed, that was one of the mottos, is always be making fun of Tim. And I'm okay with that. The trash in my car, the way that I kind of carry myself, but I was okay with that. I knew Justin was going to handle it well. I'd seen his work and I fully trusted him. And then when I saw it, I was like, yeah, I'm not surprised that this is amazing. I'm not surprised that he used this crazy iPhone shot that he was sitting on the floor in a glass room surrounded by glass shards. And then the next shot is a camera on a pole that's swinging through and capturing. I mean, I was there watching him film it, and I knew he was going to do a good job. It was a long cut in the beginning, but and there are certainly things that happened along the way that didn't make it into the film that I might have mentioned to him. What about this? What about that? But I think 2 hours is long enough for everybody to have this. It could be a miniseries, Chuck. Really, there's characters, there's stories, there's backstories of things that happened that easily could be 5 or 6 episodes of a docuseries. If Justin wants to spend another 5 years on it.
Well, I wonder if anybody has. How many hours of footage do you have, roughly? Do you know?
If you promise not to laugh at me, I will tell you. I shot 1,100 hours. Yeah.
And has anybody suggested the possibility of like a 4-part, 5-part limited series on one of the streamers? Because that might be a really interesting potential, don't you think?
I do, and I wondered if that's what I was filming, that's why I filmed so much. I didn't know if it was going to be a movie or a series like that. So I filmed a lot of other characters, but I make what I know. What I've learned is I make films, and so as much as I love television shows and stories that go over a whole season, what was familiar to me is movies, and so when I got down to it with my editor, we asked each, "What are we making?" And we both were like,
well, you have to make a decision up front to do something, but I'm just suggesting that there might be something there. Yeah. And I only bring this up because I'm looking at the fact that it's now out there with Abramorama, which isn't like, is a non-traditional distributor in many ways, right? Mm-hmm. And Roku, I'd love to know, I don't think of Roku as I know Roku, and they're a fabulous company. And I've had one of the principals on Westdoc years ago, but I think of them more of as an educational distributor and a distributor to foreign television. So I don't know how does that work with Roku and Abramorama, and what's in the future?
Yeah, good question. So I think Roku, they started sort of where you were saying, but I think they've grown much more in their U.S. Presence. And they just have such a great reputation. Before I ended up, signing with them, I had some other filmmaker friends who just said they're incredible, and they loved the movie, and they said, we see this thing going.
Are they taking it to foreign?
So yeah, they're representing that. They're the ones that connected us to Abramorama, who I have fallen in love with as well. I love that they're non-traditional. This is kind of a non-traditional movie, even though it's very traditional. I knew that it would be very niche, and so, but to me, it was a universal story in this niche world, and I ran into people who didn't quite get that. They heard the word stained glass and said, "Oh, I don't know, it's a great movie, but are people going to want to watch it because of that?" And I said, "You got to." As soon as Tim says, the first lines about not knowing if his gut wants Jack in the Box or what, that's to me like. The traditional part is fine and lovely, but Tim is what unlocked that traditional medium in a way and made it now and made it fun and funny. And people were going to forget about whether it was old and stodgy, which it's not. And so, sorry, I'm kind of getting off the point here, but I love that the people who stepped up are a bit non-traditional in where they believe it should go. And they're fighting for it, and they are amazing. Both those companies are putting all their heart and soul into it with us, and that means a lot to me. And so, that's why we're going to be in theaters, and that's why I believe that it is going to land, back on a platform, because it's now going to have been vetted by this experience. And so their intention is to go back and say, listen, take another look, because look at what it's done in the festivals and look at what it's done in theaters, which I just think is amazing. I'm biased, and I didn't know if people were going to like it or not, but man, we've been grateful for the fact that people have connected to it. It's just been such an honor, truly. Abramorama, they are stepping up. So what you said about them is true. Yeah, they do help create four-wall situations, but they've put their money where their mouth is, so to speak. They've actually put their heart into this in a way that's maybe different than other projects. So they're built into the success of what it does. We did do a fundraising campaign to provide some of the money to go out for the marketing purposes and things like that. But Abramorama is putting themselves into it and will benefit if it does well. So and then Roku, they're there for the next part, which is the streaming. They want to take what happens in the theaters and the buzz that Abramorama brings through, all the interviews and different things, marketing.
And it is right. So but here's the good news.
Yes, sir.
You made a great film. It's not a mediocre film. It's a really, really good film with a terrific story and a great cast, Tim. And I just want to congratulate you and say this is a film that definitely should be seen. And if you're watching this, and if it's in a theater near you, is it out now? In the next coming weeks to theaters?
Yeah, it's starting October 27th. So Friday, October 27th in the East Village at the Angelica. So we're screening for a week in New York, and then we're moving into Cincinnati and Oklahoma and Florida and Massachusetts. And so it's just sort of peppering itself all throughout the U.S. and more dates are being added weekly. But it's starting, our premiere screenings are in New York, and I think that's pretty special. We're really excited.
Well, the Angelica is a great theater, and that's where they're having the Doc Fest New York at Angelica, I think. Is it still there? I think it's Angelica.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
How did you get from Tulsa to L.A.?
Good question. You know,
Justin, short version.
Short version. First, I had to convince my wife that I did a film intensive program out here called the Los Angeles Film Studies, where I, for a semester, really got into film making. And then I interned at Warner Brothers at the Canton Company, and it just captured me. And I went back home after that semester. I was married already, and I asked my wife, I begged and pleaded, can we please leave Tulsa, Oklahoma and move there? And she's like, I don't know. But she said, let's give it a shot. And so we did. I immediately got a kind of a small little PA job and just stuck around,
This was after you made the Rock and Roll Dreams of Duncan Christopher?
No, so I moved here in 2003 to LA. I went back to Oklahoma to make the Rock and Roll Dreams because I had all these connections from being a musician there that, we were able to make it on the cheap because a lot of locations were willing to let us film there for free. They had a great incentive program, tax program. And so we went back, they were able to make our little money turn into bigger money. And so we went back to do that. And that's when I had told you in the beginning that we moved away and then moved back to South Pass. We moved for that reason, to go make Duncan Christopher. So I don't know. He just, it's funny. Grapes of Wrath. I don't know. There's always been like a weird Oklahoma, California connection somehow between us. And I've met so many Okies here in LA. It's crazy. There are a ton of Oklahoma people here. I don't know why we transplant so many people, but I still love Oklahoma too. And I'm excited we're playing there. But yeah, that was it. We just had a dream. Yeah.
Think about it for a minute. Let me do, while this recording is going, I like to keep it as one. I don't want to start and stop. Let me do the intro again while I'm on here. Hi, I'm Chuck Braverman. This is another episode of Westdoc Online. We have a terrific, entertaining, charming, wonderful, satisfying documentary today called Holy Frit. Let's say hello to the director and the star of the film, Justin Monroe and Tim Carey. Hi, guys.
Hey, Chuck. Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Howdy. I'd love for us to be able to maybe talk about what we're doing together now.
Oh, right. That's a thing. Yeah.
Let me ask.
Yeah.
Are you guys still working together on anything, or what are you doing?
Good question. Yeah, we are. I mean, it's crazy. The film has been going, obviously, and we've been dealing with it and building websites and doing festivals. But in the meantime, Justin has continued to film the work in glass that I'm doing and other stories around the glass world. I think what happened through the festival circuit and seeing people's response to Holy Frit was sort of twofold. One, that glass is a very exciting medium to film. There's a lot of potential for continued storytelling. And so, and then the second thing is that people are really interested in these new techniques So we are filming classes where I'm teaching young artists and old artists and whoever wants to learn about glass how to do these painterly things with glass, because I think growing the industry and these techniques is really important to me and Narcissus. And Justin agrees. We started a company together. It's called Vitrionics. And you can take it from here, Justin, in terms of why.
Yeah. Well, what I found to be kind of this winning formula was, one, how often do you get to help? I mean, what Tim does and Narcissus does has only been around for about 40 years. Like, what they do with glass is very young art medium, really. And obviously it has its roots in stained glass, but what they do is very different. And so how often do you get to help lift up the voices that are the pioneers of a brand new medium taking hold? And I just thought, wow, I'm not going to get that opportunity again. So I kept filming. And Vitrionics, the reason, which I think is who we are and what we found with Holy Frit, is it means glass crazy. It's like, histrionics, sort of the like craziness that happens for the sake of getting attention, so to speak, mixed with, vitreous, which is glass. Fused glass artists are nuts. They're all crazy. They're all kind of like Tim in their own way. They're all these characters. And I got introduced to a world that I went, you are kidding me. This whole thing exists. So our goal is a TV show. And so we've been filming. We filmed a pilot. We filmed a couple of what we'd call episodes. We launched a YouTube channel, Vitrionics YouTube. We have a new website. We're doing classes, but we're doing them in a very entertaining way. To me, this is a world that needs to be seen and uncovered in a whole real way. And I think a television show is where it is. So that's what we're up to.